Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Truth Worth Living. I'm your host, Teenan, and got a wonderful program tonight that we're going to be talking about. And we're coming from the series that we just did on the mind, and this particular segment is called The Mind of a Champion. It is a wonderful thing in life that I've had an opportunity to explore many different venues and really just hang out with the best. That's what I call it. I had the opportunity to train with the best athletes in the world. I had an opportunity to share the big screen with some wonderful world-class actors, and also to be able to travel with some wonderful musicians and recording artists. So I've had an opportunity to see some things, and my experience is not my only teacher, which I've learned sometimes your experience can be the worst kind of teacher, but it allowed me an opportunity to look inside the mind of people who have gone to the top, people who have attained things that most people couldn't even dream of, people who have attained greatness, gold medals, and it was just an honor. Oscar winners, Emmy winners, just an honor to have that. And I have people who are constantly, daily in my life like that I really feel have that type of quality and who produce those type of results. And it takes a certain disposition in order to be able to produce things like that. The one thing that we can start off by saying that it really takes to have the mind of a champion, and we're talking about this. We're going to talk about it from an athletic sense and from other different avenues, but we're mainly talking about the life of a believer and how a believer can have the proper mind and the downfalls and the pitfalls that can come across and sometimes put you in a position where you don't take advantage. It's just life habits that we have sometimes. The environment that we grew up in, we grabbed onto certain habits, and those habits have become interwoven into the fabric of our lifestyle. And we don't know, sometimes we're just one decision or one habit away from being a champion, whether that's in the classroom, on the athletic field, and in your career, and overall in your walk with Christ. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to read from Proverbs, the 4th chapter, the 20th through the 27th verse, and I'm going to start and I'm going to read a little bit till I can get to where I want to get to. I'm going to start at the 20th verse, but I really want to get to the 23rd verse, and it says this: "My son, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and healing to all flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for with it flows the springs of life." There's something about attentiveness that a lot of people don't get. A lot of us, we hear certain things that we want to do, or we see things we want to do. And what we tend to do is we start assessing from our abilities whether we can do it. And majority of people stop right there. They stop at that point of just saying, okay, I have the ability to do that. You see singers sometimes. Singers say, well, I have the ability to sing just as well as this girl who is on top, or vice versa. And you see athletes who's, yeah, I got ability, I can run fast, I can jump, I can catch the ball. But what it does, the problem is people stop at ability. And if you look, this principle here in Proverbs 4 says, it gives the true principle by which we are to walk. And it says, my son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. The first thing is, if you really want to do something and be a champion in it, particularly in the kingdom, you have to employ diligence. You have to employ consistency. Without those things, we know talent is good. The ability to do something has to be there. You have to have the ability to sing in order to sing. In order to try to go after a career in singing, you have to be able to sing. So consistency becomes the next key. And look what he says. He says, my son, be attentive to my words. Until you become a student of a thing, you really will not explore the climax of what you can do, the pinnacle of what you can attain. Without consistency, I've seen many people who have great talent, great skill, great ability, but without consistency, they were beaten by people who had less talent, less ability, because those people who had less ability and less talent employed diligence and consistency. Consistency is the key. Consistency is the key to anything. And as a matter of fact, in any believer's life, we should daily be refining our consistency. In other words, how good we did it yesterday may not be the same standard that we need today. So we keep going back, we keep tweaking the process. We keep looking at it. I don't just have one session of dribbling the basketball to be a basketball player, to be a point guard. There has to be a consistency, and with that consistency, refinement comes. And when a person experiences refinement, that's when they see gains. That's when you see strides. That's when you see a consistency on that level. Consistency brings about consistency. Sometimes your talent will allow you to tap in on certain areas and do certain things, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to be consistent in it. The best athletes, the ones that perform night after night, day after day, are the ones who are consistent in their preparation. And their consistency has brought them to a level and made them adapt to a new way of doing things, so that what was once in training hard to do, now you do it in warm-up. So there must be first of all, an attentiveness, an ability to be a student, to be able to stop, make your talent and your ability take a back seat to the instruction. Because if it had not been for the instruction, the talent has no place to be developed. And so it says, let them not escape from your sight. I often hear people talk about they want to do this, that, and the other. But if you go and look at the daily walk, the things they do in the day, none of those things point towards that. And I'm going to use this particular passage of scripture. It's going to sound crazy because it almost has a negative sense to it, but all things are useful. The Bible says that Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom. You flow where you pitch. Wherever you direct your motion, your attention, your focus to, that's where you go. And so you have to always watch the things that are coming in and out of your life, the way that you do things, what time you get up in the morning, why do you get up that time, what's the best time of day for you to actually flow. Don't you know that there are times in a day that are more creative within you than other times? So a lot of times when people are trying to create and they can't come up with nothing, it's because they're doing it at the wrong time. You are more productive physically at certain times of the day. And what do people do? Most of the time we get it mixed up with something else, and we try to be productive in a time that we should be creative. See, there's a time and a place and a period for everybody to have a pondering session or a mind session where you are looking and creative and being creative with what you're doing. And then there's other times you can't be creative. You got to move. And those creative times are usually your prayer times too. Those are the times that you actually latch on to instructions better. So you have to figure that out. You have to see the trends of your life From the time you get up in the morning, I often hear people say, I'm not a morning person. Well, what does that mean? Because even if you don't feel great during the morning, there's something that you can do at that time that can pitch towards what you're trying to accomplish. Um, I'm more creative in the morning. I found out that when I wanted to write, when I wanted to put things together, uh, between the hours of 6:30 and 8:30 to 9 o'clock are the best times for me to do that. If I wanted to do something where I had to physically exert myself, the time between 2 and 6 are best for me. Now, it's not necessarily true for everyone, but that's what's for me, and you have to engage your own life and your own habits to find out exactly what, your place is. But look at what it says. It says, keep those words, incline your ears to my sayings, let them not escape your sight. In other words, try to see everything that you're doing. Try to see how it fits into what God has called you to. See how it fits. If it doesn't fit and it's not profitable, it is stealing and taking away from it. So we got to get rid of profitless movement. And that profitless movement will always steal from our dreams, the things that God put on the inside of us to accomplish for Him. And it says, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. I said this once before in a meeting we were having. I said, it's funny, as a musician, and as you guys can tell, I'm here at my studio. I'm doing this with my studio. Musicians who are really into music and recording can sit in a studio for 8 to 10 hours straight without a break. And it seems like it was 30 minutes to 45 minutes to them. It's something about when you grasp your call, you can sit and do it for hours. You can sit, and for some reason or another, you don't get tired and beat down like you do with stuff that you're not necessarily supposed to be involved with. Think about gossip. Gossip will always make you tired. Gossip will always make you depressed. Gossip will always steal and kill your creativity, and your ability diminishes during gossip. Any negative talk, your ability diminishes, whether mentally or physically. It diminishes. So we want to make sure we are attentive to the right things, allowing the right things. Sit down, take time to study your craft. Take time away from doing it to learn it. Take time away from being on top with it and get in that grind with it and really learn the ins and outs of it, because your ability will trick you sometime into thinking that you have everything, when in essence your ability is just the shell. It's like a car without a motor. It's beautiful, it's pretty, but without the motor it can't go anywhere. So it says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. There's one translation that says this: keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. In other words, whatever's going to be your issue in life, whatever's going to be your depression, whatever's going to be your oppression, the thing that gets to you, it's going to flow from your heart. It's an interpretation of your mind interpreting through your heart back out. And that's where we run into our problems. If you're going to be an athlete, you can't be a junk food eater. If you don't keep your heart and keep the things that you do and your motives, you'll find yourself doing stuff. And then, watch this, that donut that you had may not be an issue at the moment, but 4 days later when you go to do something and you feel sluggish and you don't know why, majority of the time we can't trace back in our heart the problem that started the issue. So it's important that when you have an opportunity to do what's right, you do it then, because later you might pay for it. And we tend to, in our society, not deal with things that we don't have an immediate issue with. If you smoke, you really don't have too much of an immediate issue because you don't really have the health problems and the lung cancer immediately. But over time, these things build up. My mother was diagnosed with lung cancer some years ago, and she had stopped smoking probably about 15 years before the cancer came. And it was because of a lifestyle that was going. She didn't keep her heart or the workings of her mind with all diligence. So out of it flowed an issue. So issues flow from us not keeping our heart and keeping staying true to our call. It says, put away from you crooked speech and put away devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet. Look at what you're doing on a daily basis. What are you doing? Look at where you're going. Look at who you're hanging with. Look who your circle of influence is. What are those people doing? I'm not saying you have to cut people off and act like they don't exist. I'm just saying this, that when it comes to the point where it starts creating issues flowing from my heart, then there must be adjustments made in order for me to be successful. It says, ponder the path, that's 26th verse, of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your feet away from evil. And we want to look at evil just as simply as this. Evil is not necessarily something that's bad, but evil can be something that keeps you away from your call. You know, sometimes things aren't bad, they just aren't expedient. Paul said this, all things are lawful. In other words, it's your life, you can do what you want to do, but not all things are helpful. So you have to determine whether this thing facilitates what I'm doing. You know, as an actor, there are certain things that I try to do to facilitate what I'm doing. Most of the castings that I get called in for, I get called in to be a police officer. I've gotten called in to be a military personnel. I got called in once to be a doctor. So there are certain things, things that I want to keep myself in line so that my tent is always pitched towards success in that area. So one of the things I want to do is, you know, I'm an older man now, but I want to keep myself up. So I try to do physical activity and things. I don't do as much as I did when I was racing, you know, running hurdles, but I still do certain things to kind of keep my body up, keep everything toned, so that when those roles come along, I'm ready for it. See, that's me not swerving to the right or left and pondering the path of my feet. So when I get up in the morning, there's 3 things that I do. I am a minister of the gospel. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a coach. I'm an actor. I'm a musician. So every part of my day, I'm trying to do things that pitch my tent towards those things, and to make sure that every day I'm gaining some kind of weight in those areas. Now, mankind is always looking for ways to increase his desire base by manipulation of the mind and speech. In other words, when you start to work out, stop acting like you've been working out for 2 months. Don't look at it like that. You're just starting to work out. So therefore, you can't have the mindset that you're already doing the things that you need to do. No, you're starting to do the things that you need to do. And you need to have that mindset, because that mindset keeps you pressing. The mindset that I already got it keeps us stagnant. And when we are stagnant, our performance decreases. Our mental sharpness becomes dull, and we don't accomplish like we do. Some of us position ourselves to be deceptive for the sake of what we call good, just for the moment. And most of us interpret good for our lives as what feels good at the moment. I just brought my daughter back from, she goes to this place to do her core and strength training. And it's hard. It is extremely hard. And it does not feel good. I can see it on her face, the grimace on her face, the pain. But these are things that we have to do now in order to have what we need in January, in March, in May. These are the things that we have to do. And you have to be okay with understanding this, that when you start, you're only starting to have a good finish. You don't start to finish. You're starting to have a good finish. It takes a constant effort. It takes a consistency. And those things produce success. Every moment, event, and circumstance are manifestations of a particular sequence of decisions. Circumstances, occasions, and even associations may seem random and disconnected, but they are not. Everything in your life connects you to something. You connect with a person, they connect you with something or someone else. You connect with a new job, it connects you to different people. It connects you to different avenues. Everything, there is nothing that happens by happenstance. All things happen because of how we pitch our tent. There are no coincidences, no random events in your life. None. The way you feel now is a direct result of something that you did the day before, the days before that. If you're not getting enough rest, if you haven't gotten enough rest over the last couple of nights, you feel it now. At some point, the harvest of what's been sown shows up. The problem with us is we don't know when. That's why it's always important to take advantage of your now. Your now will lead to the correct later. Don't get to later and wonder how this happened. Know why it happened. I often say this: you don't allow life to happen to you. You happen to it. God always impregnates time with significance. Every moment of your life is significant. Even the time you make mistakes and you fail is significant. Why? Because even a failure is profit if you look at it the right way. You should never look at failure as a reason to quit. Never look at failure as a reason to stop. Even when you are corrected when you fail, you should look at it as this is a type of love to be corrected once I fail. Now I know not to do that again. Every season of your life is an appointed season. There are no off times for God. God did not make any insignificant seasons in your life. Every day is significant. Every moment, every second, every year. You can't say, I'm going to take this year off. Well, if you're taking the year off, it has to be because it helps facilitate the call. So every moment, every season has a significance to it, and God planned it before the foundations of the world. You face innumerable open gates enticing you to embark upon journeys every day. And our problem is we love to test the waters. How far can I skip these last set of bench press? And then you get to a point in a game where you're right there, but just not enough. Do your mind ever goes back to that, I missed that set? See, the mind of a champion is one that constantly is looking for ways to increase, looking for ways to pull out. That's the significance of man. The significance of man is that he does not know how powerful he is. He does not know how powerful God made him and how significant that power is to others. The true heart of a champion, he's a champion not just for himself but for others too. Him being a champion brings about a standard for everyone else. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. This is not about let's see how little we can do and get away with it. We cannot have a stingy heart. We cannot have a stingy heart towards what we're called to. What we're called to, we have been commissioned to develop it, to exercise it, and to promote it. So don't be guilty of not taking advantage of what you've been called to. Eden was an appointed place for Adam and Eve. It was the place where God provided their call. Everything God wanted them to do was in Eden. they decided to listen to instructions outside of. See, when you're not attentive to your master's instructions, you will hear another. No man is ever vacant long. If you're not filled with goodness, then you will be filled with something. If you're not filled with consistency, then you will be filled with laziness. So it's important that we occupy ourselves where we're called in the right places. There are certain places that you shouldn't be if you're trying to attain certain things. I just cannot understand how athletes, professional athletes, who are on top of the world, got everything that they could ever imagine. Why are you at a nightclub getting shot? It just doesn't make sense. It does not facilitate the life that you're called to. It does not facilitate it. So it's important that we're at the right places to take advantage of what we've been called to. Adam and Eve were commissioned to dress it and keep it, not just enjoy it. Our problem is we want to enjoy our gifts, but there's a process of dressing and keeping, sharpening, that we must continue to do. When we don't do that, again, we dull. We dull that gift and that talent that God has given us, even that call. And that's not what we want, because it's not just about us. When we just set out to enjoy the gift that God has given us, then we are missing the whole point of blessing others with it. There is just one rule that God ever created for man. All other rules are another definition for that rule. Both the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they were both good trees. Isn't that something? They were both good trees. You know what made the tree of the knowledge of good and evil bad? Is that man was not supposed to take it. So when man took it, he displaced it. When you displace something that God put in a certain place and put a limit to it, now you have just ceased in your authority to be who you are. So a lot of times we get connected, we get hooked up with things, ways of doing things, even with people, that jar us from our position, and we now lose our authority to do what we've been called to do. That's why a lot of us have a lot of gifts and talents, but the people that need to see it won't see it, because we're still yet dealing with the valley when we should be on the mountain. There is nothing inherently evil about anything that God creates. But there is an evil in the path you take to deal with that thing. You can take your gift and actually manipulate people with it and control people. And that's a no-no. Every season affords you the opportunity to address the press of life as one surrendered to the authority of God or to your own self. God called you, God fashioned you, and God finished you before the foundations of the world. Our key is not in creativity. Our key is in manifesting what is. There was something that I was called to do before I was ever born. There's something that you were called to do before you were ever born. How do you detect that? Well, in most of our society, the problem with particularly us as Americans is that we grow up to become something. Our parents give us a certain list of careers to be successful. And really we weren't told in the beginning who we were, so we grew up looking for ourselves. Well, any man know that when you go looking for something that you already have, you always find stuff that you don't need. So anytime man searches outside of searching God himself, he always finds his own troubles, his own issues. Ecclesiastes says this: God has made man good, but man has found all kinds of ways to be bad. Pride is a seducer. John Christensen said that pride was the mother of hell. It's a very extreme way of putting it. But you think about it, it's amazing. No weight, no sin is absent of pride. All of it has to do with pride. All of it has to do with what a man wants to enjoy for himself only and not as a piece of a whole. Whatever you do in life that's just for you, you have just created a weight in your life. Whatever you do that you share with others, now you've just created profit for your life, and you've actually added to your life. You've added to the energy level of your life. You added to the manifestation level of your life. Colossians 3, and I'm going to start at the first verse. And it says this, Colossians 3, the first verse. It says, if then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above where Christ is. In other words, wherever your aim is, you must seek the things where that is. The world record holder in the 100 meters is not at the club drinking all night. It's just not going to happen. There are certain things that you cannot get involved with when you are trying to become a champion in something, when you are trying to rise to the top in something. There are certain things you cannot be, and you have to seek after the things that facilitate that. If you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above. This is talking to the believer. If you've been raised with Christ, if we've been crucified with him and then raised with him, now we're going to seek the things where he is. Because that's the telltale sign that I have been raised. My being raised has to do with what I seek. And it says, the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. In other words, what he's saying here is set your mind on heavenly things and not the materialistic things. We all know that the fight during the first century church was whether we follow the law or whether we follow this thing by faith. And Paul had to make a point that salvation was not according to works. We're not going to be saved because we do good works. But when we are saved, works come. You cannot, isn't it something? You can't get saved by doing works, but you can't be saved not doing good works. So this is what he's saying. He's saying you seek those things that are above, where the success of what you're trying to attain is. Where is the success? Think about your careers. Think about what you're trying to accomplish. Where's the success of it at? For a football player, I know a couple of those places. The field, the weight room. The success is there. Success in football is there. Success for athletes is wherever you can practice and cultivate the things that go to that call. It says, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Now look what he says. For you have died, for your life is hid with Christ in God. Fourth verse. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. I love that. What he's saying is this. When you see somebody that's great, and here we're talking about Christ, but let's just talk about just in general in life, somebody that does really well in your job or in athletics. When you see them, we automatically measure. Everybody does it. We start measuring our lives against who we call the best. What he's saying is, set your mind on things where that person is. What did it take for them mentally to do that? What did they have to sacrifice to do that? Then what you do is you start rehearsing those things. And look what happened. It says, when Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. In other words, you will be just like him. So to pursue it and set your mind on it the correct way produces what you're pursuing. And then it says, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Now this goes back to the second verse, which says, set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are of the earth. Now, look at how he's putting this together so that you can actually see. Now he's going to tell you what's on earth. Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desires, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked when you were living in them. But now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being. That's the problem right there, being. We don't like being because being is a process. We just want to be. But this thing takes a being in order to do. We have to keep pressing. We have to keep pushing. There'll be some days where you don't feel like doing it the way that you've been doing it. There'll be other days that you feel like you're on cloud 9. But you cannot allow the press and the varying of life and emotions to dictate that. It says, put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. In other words, we're constantly learning who God is. We're constantly learning how to be better athletes. We're constantly learning how to be better in our careers, in our education. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised. In other words, this was the word that Paul was giving in reference to that people could not use the law and say, well, I'm of this sect, so I'm better than you. No, this thing has been put on a level playing field. God has given to every man the measure of faith. Every last one of us is given that. Now, what you do with it, that's the issue. And I'm almost finished here. Temptation begins in the mind with concepts and imagination. You have to get to the point where you learn to arrest and interview imaginations, concepts that come in your mind. The process of thinking is a very important process, because thinking turns into doing, and doing turns into the character of who you are. That's how you be defined by what you do. It doesn't matter how we put it. What you are doing is what people label you as. If you are lying, they label you as a liar. If you are gossip, they label you as a gossip. So whatever it is that you do, that's what you're labeled in. That's the heart of what you're in at that time. Pride is most charming to its possessor. Every Christian must suspect his own motive. As believers, you have to interview everything that comes into your mind. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path. You are most clever when you are justifying your own affair with pride. You won't be any smarter or intelligent than when you are justifying you. You are at your absolute best of manipulation when you are manipulating about your own life. If you know that you're not doing the things that you need to do, you're trying to get healthy, but you're not doing the things that you need to do, you need to be honest. And then from there, make a decision on whether you're going to waste time in doing something that's not going to profit, or whether you're going to put the amount of energy in it. Both are sacrifices. Either you sacrifice for good or you sacrifice for your worst. but they will both be a sacrifice. You will pay a price to not do, and you will pay a price to do. Every day you make decisions based on your trust of you or God. There is no in between. And most of our lives we spend blaming others for decisions that we made, when at the end of the day, even if someone makes a decision for us, unless you are a child, unless you don't have the ability to make that decision, but you have the ability to say yea or nay, you're responsible for it. Temptation resides in the part of your life that is unsurrendered to God. That's why we got to continue to keep walking in a way that we always analyze and let me see. It's not a thing of condemning. We don't want to condemn ourselves, but we do want to understand that if we're off, we want to know we're off. We don't want to continue in a life that is not productive, waiting for something good to happen. It's not going to happen if we're not walking the correct way. The external only provides you with the opportunity to give voice to the rebel lying within your heart. In other words, your heart will always speak. It will speak, and it will speak at its most inopportune moment. You will show your true colors in a time when you are most visible. So if you really want to be something, I often tell athletes, I had athletes, they want to be great in this, they want to run this fast, they want to run that fast, but they would not take the instructions, they wouldn't do the things they were supposed to do, so that when the track meet came and the clock stopped, the clock told, the clock revealed what their heart was doing the whole time and what their heart had grasped. The clock told. We are always off because of someone, somebody, or something else. The truth is, the external gives a manifested look at what we were doing from the beginning. It does. The external is nothing more than a delayed internal action. Proverbs 21, and this, I think this is going to be my last one. And you guys will be able to find a lot of this stuff that I'm teaching on now. It's going to be in my book. Here's the manuscript. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'm trying to get everything done. I too have a path to go to finish some things that I've been called to, and it's something that we all deal with. And in time, if we keep moving, pitching our tent towards that thing, we'll get there. Proverbs 21:2 says this: every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Every place that you find yourself in manifestation is merely a look into the journey that your heart already took. That's all. Every place that you find yourself in manifestation, where you are right now, is merely a look into the journey or the path that your heart has already taken. Your heart went there before you did. And you showed up because your heart pitched you that way. Some people have a hard time controlling their thought life. Others struggle with eating habits. Some struggle with fashion and shopping. Some struggle with authorities. What do you struggle with, and why do you struggle with it? Why? Self-control broke down with Eve on 4 actions. She saw, she took, she ate, she gave. This is how we complete a journey in life. Whatever we do, whether we're going to be successful or a failure, we see, we take, we eat, and then we give. That brings everything we do in life in full circle. If you are good at something, if God has given you something that that a lot of people can't do, it's for you to give. So you saw, you took, You ate, then you gave. That's the life of a Christian. Eve perverted it because she forgot what her master said to her. Her Lord's voice was mute long enough for the enemy to come into play. Cannot mute God's voice. Anytime you hear something off, start quoting something that your Father said. Start quoting something that your Lord said. Jesus, when he was tempted, the Bible says he was taken into the wilderness to be tempted. And every time Satan introduced something to him, what did he do? He repeated something his Father said. He did not try to make up anything. He did not refer to his giftedness. He did not refer to his position. He only went back to what his Father said. That's why it's important to hear. Take time to hear. Take time to hear, and don't be so quick to speak. Remember, the tree nor its fruit were evil. This is important because the main thing that people say when they are off is, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Wrong never originates with a thing. Wrong originates with the use. Now, the use becomes a product of personnel. There were certain things, you remember in the old covenant, only the priest could offer sacrifices. So when Saul offered a sacrifice, the very thing that was good now became evil. So it's important that everything that you do, you keep it in line and pitch towards where you're going. God gives us what journeys that keeps us toward him and not Sodom. Take the journey to him, because as beautiful as Sodom is, it's going to burn. Resist the pleasure of the moment to have an eternal existence. Now I'm coming to the end of this. But it's important that if we're going to be champions at what we've been called to, if we're really going to do this, then there has to be some sacrifice made. There has to be some moments where we say no when everybody else is saying yes. There has to be moments, athlete, when you really want to do something and accomplish something. You got to stay off the phone and go to bed at night. When we want to really do some things on our job and in our careers, we got to go over and beyond what everybody else is doing. You want the promotion? Show your boss that you're more dedicated than the next person. It all takes sacrifice. It takes time to sit and ponder. It takes time to pitch our tents toward. It takes time to seek things where we're going is at. It's important that if you're going to be a champion, that you have to take time to analyze your own heart, because out of it is flowing your issues. If you keep having hiccups in your plan, test your heart. If things keep falling apart and nothing can ever work out like it's supposed to, check the heart. The heart is the projector of issues. If all you see in your life, the big screen of your life, is things falling apart, check the projector. But know this, that when we seek after him, and when we seek after the success of where he is, we know that we shall be successful. You shall have the mind of a champion. The mind of a champion will throw out all garbage. That's what my commission is to you for the next week. Go through your life, go through the way you do things, throw out garbage. Even physically, go through your house, look at stuff, look at papers, look at mail that's sitting around that ain't. Why are all these useful things in our lives cluttering our space? We can't even be creative because the atmosphere is not conducive for creativity. The mind of a champion cleans away anything that becomes weight to his destiny. So I pray that you guys got something on this evening. And again, be back with us again on next Wednesday at 7:25 here at Force of Life TV, A Truth Worth Living, and invite someone to your worship assemblies. Not only invite them just to come see your pastor, but invite them because we're adding to the body. Let the works of what we're doing happen on the outside, so that when we come together, it's more of a celebration and instruction given. And I'll see you guys on next time. Be blessed.